Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. My name is Kirsty, and in this video I wanted to talk about best practices when it comes to your fat loss transformation journey. You want to lose fat, you want to tone up, you want to feel good, you want to look good, you want to move really well too. You want to do it in a way that doesn't kill you in the process. Well, in this video I'm going to be discussing the differences in the approaches and the best practices so one, you can achieve the results you want, also be able to do it in a way that's nourishing and sustainable, and also be able to maintain it long term without deprivation. And that's a really big one. Most people believe that once they achieve X, Y, and Z when it comes to their body transformations, most of the time due to the drastic measures people have taken, they feel like they're going to have to do that for the rest of their lives, and it's just not sustainable, right? It's not attainable, it's not fun either. But what if there's a way that you can do it, right? And of course, there's always going to be a level of challenge, but you choose your hard, okay? And I'm going to be able to, well, my intention is that through this video, I can hopefully educate and empower you to make the choices that are not only going to set you up for success to achieve your goals, but also in the rest of your life. So let's talk first about the differences in approaches when it comes to a body transformational journey in terms of losing fat or weight. We have a weight loss approach, and we also have a quality fat loss approach. Now, a weight loss approach is probably something that you have heard in terms of terminology used quite a lot. Do this to lose X amount of weight in how many days. This is the best weight loss plan, X, Y, and Z. The limitations here is that when people embark on a weight loss journey, there's very limited factors that come into play. One, most people just focus on exercising as much as possible because they focus on energy in versus energy out. Most of the time they also focus on eating as little as possible. They also only really focus on the number of the scales. Now the limitations here is that one, the scales account for everything that your beautiful body has to offer. So it's not just your fat, it's also your bones, your muscle, your blood, your skin, your hair, the water that you have in your body that you've drank or not drank, the food that you've eaten or you've excreted. Like there's so many things that come into play, like even your clothing. So it's really important to note that when you step on the scales, it's not just taking into account if there's been fluctuations in your fat. It could also be from muscle, it could be from water, it could be from the food you've eaten that day, can be from a variety of different factors. So the limitations there is one is that we don't actually know where that number is dropping from. The other side of things is that they focus mainly on energy in versus energy out. And now the challenges here is that this is where we'll commonly see people over-exercise and under-eat, which can cause a cascade of health problems, which I'll touch on very shortly. But also they don't really focus on the macronutrient and micronutrient breakdown. So when we talk in terms of quality nutrition, we want to make sure that we're having enough proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and micronutrients, so like our vitamins and our minerals, to support our beautiful internal ecosystem. Every single cell needs nutrients, and if we're depriving it for long periods of time, and also without adequate nutrients coming in to support those bodily processes, we start to see breakdowns in the body. Now with a weight loss approach, commonly when they're doing all of these things, we start to see weight drop. However, it's not always necessarily from fat. A lot of the times it comes from muscle mass, which is not great. We actually need muscle mass for a variety of different functions, and also just bodily proteins for many things. And often a lot of the times is that when we're depriving the body for a long period of time, the body starts to break down. So what we really want to focus on is making sure that when we're embarking on a journey of transformation, we want to preserve as much muscle mass as possible while simultaneously losing fat, so tapping into those fat stores, but nourishing the body as much as we can to minimize the disruptions in other hormones and bodily processes that are at play. So how we do this is by applying a quality fat loss approach. And we do this by one, making sure that we're nourishing as much as we can. We focus on our macronutrients, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and also our vitamins and minerals and all of those things. But also we focus on the energy that's coming in versus the energy coming out, and we actually can fluctuate it throughout the week to counteract any ill health effects that can come from being deprived for a long period of time, which I'll touch on that terminology soon, but it's essentially called under an umbrella of RED-S, relative energy deficiency in sport, but I'll talk about those symptoms very soon. But within that, we focus on the nutrients when it comes to coming in and balancing it throughout the week. We also focus on doing the minimal effective dose when it comes to our training. We don't want to overtrain. We don't want to go way too hard. We want to challenge the body just enough with the nutrients that it's able to use to recover. And we also focus on other things such as our sleep. We focus on mood. We track other things as well, digestion and all those amazing things. But when we talk about the main trifecta of what we're focusing on is our sleep, we focus on our nutrition, and we also focus on our training. So it's really important to note that when we talk about a quality fat loss approach, we're monitoring all of these things. And how we actually measure whether something is working or it is not is we can use the scale weight. However, that only tells us so much. We also use as well body measurements, we can use DEXA scans, we can also use body calipers, we can use body photos, and we can also use check-in points, which a great coach will always ask, or you can also do this for yourself. How's your sleep? How's your mood? How's your energy? How's your performance? How's your focus? How's your digestion? How is your hunger? Like, all of these things come into play. Now, it might sound like a lot, but the body is such a beautiful, complex, but also incredible ecosystem. And there's a lot of things that come into play. And something that happens is that essentially when we're entering a period of deprivation, that's essentially what we're entering when we're entering a fat loss phase, we're signaling to the body, hey, we don't have enough energy coming in. We need to tap into the stores into our body to restore balance and repair and maintain and whatever it needs to do. Now, if we don't have the right quality of macronutrients coming in, the body may go, hey, I need to take it from other proteins in the body. Proteins are in pretty much every single cell in our body. It's also in our muscles, it's in our hair, it's our skin, it's in every single bodily process. So when we start to think about this, if it's stealing from there, our body can't function to the best that it can. It's already in an environment of low energy. It also doesn't have enough to be able to repair and grow and go through bodily functions. Oh my gosh, the body's got to start to break down. So within that, it's really important that, one, we understand that we're disrupting balance, disrupting homeostasis, but we want to be able to do it in a way that's as nourishing as possible. So we focus on the food, we focus on all the other parameters when it comes to a quality fat loss approach. So within that, it's much more than just energy in versus energy out. It's really important we focus on quality nutrition. We focus on making sure that you're doing the minimal effective dose, you're taking time to rest and recover, and you're monitoring things as you go. Another really big thing is as well is that most people embark on a weight loss journey and they just keep going and going and going and going. A quality fat loss approach is periodized. And a really big thing to note with this is that periodization is key. So we want to think about our body as like a set point, right? The harder we go, the harder it's going to be able to resource and recover and create a new state of balance. I like to think of it like a rubber band theory. The harder you pull back, the harder it's going to hurt. So the harder and longer you diet, the more likely it's going to be really hard to come out from that, right? And the body's going to go, oh my gosh, I need to go back to whatever feels safe. So when we come back to that terminology and that view of when we talk about a quality fat loss approach, do it for 4 to 12 weeks roughly, give the body whatever it feels. Then we have a short break. We go back to maintenance, back to balance, enough energy coming in versus the energy coming out, making sure it's supported through macro and micronutrients and all the other resources. And this essentially tells the body that this is the new set point, right? So if you're someone that's ever embarked on a transformational journey, and let's just say you've dieted for like 6 to 12 months, right? You've pushed yourself damn hard, right? You've got that resilience. You can do this. And then at the end, you sort of go back to square one or maybe even worse. Well, that can be from like a variety of different factors. That could be from loss of muscle mass, disrupting how much energy you actually burn at rest. It could be from the fact that it's gone way too hard, way too quick. The body is like, we need to prepare for this to happen again. So if it happens again, we need to make sure we have enough resources. So I always like to think about things of pacing things out, taking things as steadily as we can, because we're always going to be disrupting balance and we want to make sure that we are taking little points of safety throughout our journey. It's a beautiful balancing act. There's a lot of art that goes into it, and it's very tempting to want to lose weight as fast as you can. However, we want it to be as quality as possible. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about as well the importance of muscle mass, right? I'm talking about preserving as much muscle mass as we can and losing fat, so signaling to the body, hey, we've got enough nutrients to preserve the muscle that we need and preserve the proteins, the bodily proteins, processes within the body and all the other hormonal mechanisms. You can actually tap into fat stores because we've got everything else sorted. We want to be able to signal that to the body. And the reason is because as we start to lose proteins or the body starts to use them in other areas to repair and grow wherever the damage is done, most of the time through overtraining, is that we want to make sure we've got that muscle because it's a massive determining factor. One, not just for longevity, people talk about this, but also how much energy you burn at rest. So if you're someone that loves to eat, like me, you want to be able to make sure that you have enough muscle mass to support the energy that you have, because the lower lower the muscle mass that you have, the lower your energy requirements, because fat doesn't actually need energy. Muscle mass does, okay? So it's really important to note that the more muscle mass that we do have, the more energy that we do need throughout our day-to-day. So if you're someone that's embarked on a transformational journey and lost majority of the weight through muscle, your ability to be able to maintain, your set point's actually going to be lower than what it was when you first started. So you're actually going to have to deprive yourself even more to start to see those results, which is really what you don't want, okay? So it's really important that, one, we preserve that muscle mass as much as we can. Also as well, when we talk about in terms of muscle mass, there's a lot of other health factors that come into play. One, building muscle strength and mass may help reduce depression risk. Now, these studies suggest that also as well, it's really important that we build that strength to be able to help with that. How that is linked, they talk about it in terms of like the stronger grip strength and greater muscle mass. We're less likely to experience depression. That could be in relation to energy needs. It could be in relation to function. Because when we talk about our proteins, which I'll do a whole separate video because it's definitely a wormhole to go down to, is that our proteins aren't just our muscle mass, it is involved in every single cell, as I mentioned earlier. So if our body is deprived of the essential nutrients to rebuild and grow, it actually doesn't allow our body to function at its best possible capacity. So that's really important to note. Also as well is that a study has also shown that low muscle mass is directly increasing the risk of all-cause mortality. So cardiovascular diseases like your stroke and heart attack and metabolic syndrome. Now within this, it's really important to note that cardiovascular disease is the number one killer in this world, right? And one of those things that we can actually do to combat this is nourish our body as much as we can, and within that, preserve as much muscle mass as we can. It's also as well lower lean mass, so lower muscle mass was associated with a higher risk of general cognitive decline in men and women. So memory and focus and all of these things are super important, especially as we age. You know, even in our day-to-day life, right? For us to be able to do the best that we possibly can in any sort of environment, increase our attention span and all that sort of stuff, lower lean mass was associated with a greater decline. So it's really important to note that all of these factors come into play. Also as well is that when we talk about our muscles as well, they increase and improve our blood flow. So there's actually muscles located within all of our blood vessels. And within that allows the blood to flow to all different parts of your body. So when we're actually making sure that we're eating enough proteins coming in to support the bodily proteins, within that, one of those muscles that we also want to protect is the smooth muscles within those networks. So our beautiful cardiovascular network, it's over 125 kilometers long. It can wrap around the earth 2.5 times. So within that, we have all of those smooth muscles to also look after as well. So within that, it's really, really important as well that we're nourishing in those ways. So there's so many factors that come into play. And then we come back to the aesthetic side of things. If you want to build the toned physique where you have muscle showing, you've got, muscle definition and you've got shape and all those sort of things, you need muscle mass to be able to also have that too. So it's so important that in terms of the approach that you do, that we are focusing on nourishing the body as much as we can, preserving as much muscle mass and lean mass as we can, supporting the bodily systems as much as we can. And that allows the body to go, hey, even though we don't have enough energy coming in, we can support everything else. Let's tap into the fat stores. Of course, when it comes to fat loss, it is a little bit more of a complex approach, but to make it as simple as possible, when it is supported in nutrients for other bodily processes, the body can do what it needs to do, pending the fact that there is no disruptions in that chemical process within the messengers within the body. So I wanted to touch a little bit about what happens as well when you chronically diet. So most people who embark on a weight loss journey, most of the time, they do it for a long period of time. Now, chronic dieting can lead to things such as red S or low energy availability, right? And this is the environment that starts to create a breakdown of things, which is what we really, really don't want. Now, essentially, low energy availability is defined as the amount of energy the body sees after you account for everything when it comes to movement and exercise. So let's just say, for example, I eat 2,000 calories for the day. I expend 600 calories in exercise, my body is able to see 1400 calories for the rest of the day, right? It's like if someone eats 1,000 calories and they expend 1,000 calories, the body actually sees no energy at all. Now, it's really important to note that the body actually needs a certain amount of nutrients to be able to function in the background, right? It's a really delicate process to be able to find the right amount in terms of what is the quality fat loss zone. We always just want that minimal effective dose, that lowest amount. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the side effects of low energy availability, and if you've ever experienced any of these sort of things, it's not normal. So it's actually really something important to note, to have a look at how's your nutrition, what's your training demands like, how's your sleep, how's your recovery, all of these sort of things. So when we talk about the functions that essentially have a decline when we're not eating enough and we are overtraining, is that we can experience things such as disruption in our menstrual cycle as females. So if you've ever embarked on a transformational journey where you've done like a weight loss challenge or a fat loss challenge and you've lost your menstrual cycle, that's not normal, okay? So it's really important that we're able to actually focus on a quality fat loss approach where we're able to nourish the body as much as we possibly can and also support that menstrual cycle function. Essentially what happens is when the body detects low energy availability, where it's like, okay, we don't have enough nutrients coming in, it goes, we don't need to reproduce, right? So it stops that function. However, even if you're someone that's not actively trying to reproduce, we still need those sex hormones to be able to function at our best, right? They all play a key factor in terms of our overall physiology. So it's really, really important to note that even if we aren't actively trying to reproduce, we still want to support our natural menstrual cycles. Other things that we can experience is a decline in bone health. So things such as, leading to osteoporosis, people have like weaker bones, stress fractures, all that sort of stuff. So if you're someone that experiences a lot of injuries when you're embarking on a journey of transformation or even throughout your day-to-day life, that's also not normal, okay? So it's really important to note that diet and training, even just your diet and how much energy you're expending throughout the day, can have a massive determining factor on how well your body is, how strong your body is, and also how great it is at recovering from challenging periods. Also, low energy availability can impact your immunity. So if you're someone that experiences sicknesses quite frequently, that also could be from the fact that your body is unable to support the demands of fighting harmful bacteria that is coming in. Other things such as, impacting our performance, impacting the body's ability to be able to repair and grow muscle, also impact our cardiovascular health. So another thing that's really important to note is that we have other muscles that are really important to note. So one of those things is the diaphragm, which is a skeletal muscle that is located just here, right? It supports how we breathe. It expands and contracts, allows the lungs to open and expand, and allows us to breathe. Another one that also has muscle is our heart muscles, right? So if we're also not supporting the body with the right amount of macronutrients, we're depriving the body to be able to function at its best to allow us to breathe and pump blood, which puts excessive strain on the heart, which can lead to ill health effects as well. So when we think about this, if we aren't nourishing the body as much as we can, we can't breathe optimally, we can't pump blood as efficiently, it puts excessive amount of stress on the body, which is really, really not great. So it's really, really important to note that. Plus, a little fun fact is that when we talk about fat loss, when we actually oxidize the fat, when we're actually expelling it as a waste product through the body, where does it actually go? Majority of it actually comes out through our breath. So our ability to breathe is also a really important mechanism for us to be able to lose fat. Interesting fact, right? It's around 8.6 kilos per 10 kilos comes out through the breath, and the rest comes out through urine and through sweat. So very interesting fact. But when we talk about the muscle in these parts too, like when we're in low energy availability for long periods of time, that can impact all of these bodily functions too. Protein in every cell, all of those sort of things. We also have, essential fats that are needed within our body. Like there's so many things that come into play. Other things that could be experienced is like impairments of metabolic rate. So I mentioned a little bit earlier is that the lower the muscle mass that you have, the lower the energy needs that you have. So you could go on this massive transformation and then you try to maintain those results afterwards, but you actually have to eat less than what you used to be able to maintain it because your muscle mass has been lost. So I don't know how much I can reiterate. It's so important to make sure you're eating the right amount of macronutrients, but there are so many ill effects that can come from undereating and overtraining. Other things that are really important to note as well that, may feel like common things, but they're actually not, is muscle growth inconsistencies, a high fat gain to muscle gain ratio, prolonged fatigue, like extremely tired all the time, decreased libido, right? So low sex drive is also not normal. You can also as well experience, breakdowns within the body in other ways, like hormonal disruptions and things like that. It just essentially creates the body to be out of balance for a long period of time, and it can't function at its best. There's also psychological and performance factors that come into play, right? Obviously, chronically dieting for a long period of time can really mess you up mentally. For anyone that's ever embarked on that sort of journey, you know what it's like if you've been dieting for a long period of time. My history, definitely done that when I was younger. Oh my gosh, the binges, the cycles, all that sort of stuff without actually nourishing my body the way that it need to. Yeah, it's a journey, right? But it also messes you up a little bit psychologically too. So within that, if you experience impairments to your judgment, your mood, your concentration, coordination, training response, and physical performance, and increase in irritability, these things also aren't normal too, right? Occasionally, yeah, of course, you're going to feel that way. It's just naturally human. However, if it's for prolonged periods of time, that's not normal, right? And I'm sure you've all met someone who's embarked on a weight loss journey, and they come into the office and they're like, don't talk to me, don't show me anything, don't talk to me today, I'm starving, I don't want to talk to anyone, right? I've experienced it. I feel for them because I know what it's like when you're depriving the body of all the essential things that it needs. So coming back to that, of course, low energy availability is needed for fat loss, right? We need to be able to signal to the body, hey, we don't have enough energy coming in, tap into the stores we have on the body. But the approach is key on where it's going to tap into those stores majority of the time. Of course, we can't actually solely exactly determine where it's going to be coming from in terms of the loss. However, we can support ourselves through what is known through science and evidence-based research to be able to ensure the body has everything it needs to do everything else in the background and tap into the fat stores as much as it possibly can. Now, a really important thing to note is that these symptoms that we're experiencing can actually be experienced in just 5 days of low energy availability. So just 5 days into any dieting approach where you're eating less than what you're expending, you can actually start to experience these symptoms. So how do we counteract this if it happens so soon? Well, what we've been able to see through scientific literature is that if we're able to have a balanced day where essentially we're eating at maintenance, or even in a slight surplus where we're eating a little bit more than what we're expending twice a week, we're actually able to counteract the symptoms of red S. So counteract the symptoms of everything I've just mentioned. And that, of course, making sure that we're focusing on the macronutrients, micronutrients, the recovery, how we train, all those sort of things. But within that, we're actually able to counteract that, and we're able to also create not only just a physiological break, but a psychological break throughout your weeks. So that can actually make it more maintainable and more easier and more sustainable to stick to long term. That also allows you to be able to have periods throughout the week where you are nourished again a little bit more, right? We always want to focus on nourishing as much as we can, but those extra days of where they're a little bit higher at maintenance or just above, we're actually able to provide the body with all the essential nutrients that it needs, and we're able to keep going. Now, this can be a really great approach to be able to create a more sustainable lifestyle, right? Because if you think about it, if you've got 2 higher days throughout the week, you can still go out and have breakfast with your friends on the weekend. You can have dinner with your friend throughout the week, like your partner, whatever it might be. It gives you that flexibility, right? And most people work 5 days a week, 2 days off. You could even have 5 days of lower, 2 days of higher, right? And that can also be very dependent and very individualized. And, it's funny, there's this concept of yo-yo dieting, right? Where you eat really low for some days and eat higher on some days. Now that I've come to learn a lot of the things is that it always comes down to the intention and approach. And I personally find that, as long as you're supporting the body with enough nutrients, you're also focusing on the minimal effective dose when you're applying a deficit. You're not doing anything super crazy. You're making sure that it's just enough to be able to create that response to tap into those fat stores, and you're able to do it in a way that's super nourishing. Then having low days and high days can actually be incredibly beneficial. And it has been shown in science, which I'll pop in the notes below too. You can check out the studies that by having those balanced days or slight surplus days throughout your week, you're actually able to counteract those symptoms of low energy availability, relative energy deficiency in sport, so red S symptoms. So it always comes down to the intention and the approach, right? So it's so important. So I think that's everything I'm going to add for this video today because it's already quite long. I'm going to do a separate video in terms of how to apply yourself for a quality fat loss approach. I feel like it'd be nice to do a separate video for that because now you've got all the education. Cool, write down the notes that feel relevant, everything that sort of stands out. In the next video that I'll create, I'll do the best approach. And of course, if you ever need help anytime where you want to learn, you can always reach out. I do work with people one-on-one, men and women. So you can reach out via the link below. You can book in a free call or you can just send me a message if you wish. Also, this is not a plug either. I just say that because of course, if you need the help, I am here. However, I also want to be able to provide the tools that if you don't have that option right now to work with someone else, you're able to do it on your own. At the end of the day, I hope that people are able to do things in the most healthily way possible, not go through what I did growing up, where I was constantly depriving myself, not giving my body enough nutrients, having mood imbalances, how I feel, having that, just being so out of balance, right? We're all about, my mission is to educate and empower you through wellness to live your best life. And if you're feeling amazing, you're moving amazing, you've got everything you need to function at your best, you can do things in a way that allows you to live your life, well, then I feel great, right? I feel great that you feel great. So if you need anything, reach out. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know below if you found anything interesting, because if you love these videos, I will do more of them. If I don't hear anything, I'll be like, oh, okay, maybe they're not that great. So feedback is so welcome, and constructive feedback is so great too. I always love to say, like, do a little shit sandwich, positive, constructive, positive, all right? But have the best day. I'll see you guys on the next video.